Members seeing a strange car come and go from the Sumners' house, and family says that they think that Carol and Reggie probably were just being nice, allowing the group to stay overnight so they didn't have to make the trip to and from Charleston all in one day.
This mother showed them where the spot was at.
Yes, dear.
Bruce just killed us all.
Yes, dear.
Carol Margaret Alford was born on February 16th, 1944, in North Charleston, South Carolina. She grew up bright, warm, and sociable, the kind of person people remembered. In high school, she knew a boy named James Reginald Sumner. Everyone called him Reggie. They were interested in each other. But they were young, and life had other plans. Reggie joined the United States Navy after graduation. Carol stayed behind. They went their separate ways. Carol married twice. Her first marriage ended in divorce. Her second marriage became something far darker. On that evening, Carol's estranged second husband came to the home where she was living with her daughter Rhonda, who was 10 years old at the time. He knocked. Carol opened the door. He raised a gun and shot her 6 times. Then he turned the weapon on himself. Rhonda was in the house when it happened. Paramedics reached Carol in time. She survived, but the damage was permanent. She lost the sight in one eye. She developed chronic pain that would follow her for the rest of her life. One of the blood transfusions she received during treatment gave her hepatitis C, which would later progress into liver cancer. Carol recovered. She went back to work. She spent years as a civil servant at the Citadel and at Charleston Air Force Base. She worked nights at department stores. She raised her children. She moved forward, the way people do when they have no other choice. She did not have another relationship for a long time. Reggie, meanwhile, had served his years in the Navy, come home to South Carolina, married once, divorced, and found steady work with the CSX Railroad. He was a Navy veteran, a diabetic, and by the late 1990s, a man with accumulating health problems, partial blindness, a fractured tibia that required a cane indoors and a walker outside, liver complications from his own history with hepatitis C. Both of them had been through the kind of hardship that leaves marks. Both of them were living quietly, separately, in the same corner of South Carolina. In the year 2000, Carol was working a night shift at a cable television company. A call came in from a man having trouble with his cable service. His name was James Sumner. His voice was familiar. Her voice was familiar to him. They talked for a long time that night. They talked about where their lives had gone, about the years in between. By the time the call ended, they had agreed to meet. By 2001, Carol Alford and Reggie Sumner were married. They settled first in Ladson, South Carolina. Then in March 2005, after Reggie's health made the warmth of Florida more appealing, they packed up their home and moved to Jacksonville. Reggie had bought a house there years earlier, during his railroad days. It was finally time to use it. Before they left South Carolina, they sold their property. They made approximately $99,000 from the sale. They mentioned this in passing to people they knew. One of those people was a young woman named Tiffany, who lived next door. Tiffany Ann Cole was born on December 3rd, 1981, in Charleston, South Carolina. When her father, David Duncan, was diagnosed with terminal cancer, Tiffany moved back in with him to help care for him. David Duncan's house sat directly beside the Sumners. The two families became close. Carol and Reggie helped with David's care during his illness. They welcomed Tiffany into their home. They treated her with the kind of warmth they extended to everyone they trusted. When it came time to move to Jacksonville, they sold Tiffany their green Chevrolet Lumina at a discount, allowing her to pay it off in small monthly installments. To make her payments, Tiffany drove regularly from South Carolina to Jacksonville. By the spring of 2005, she was making those drives with a young man she had been dating for about 2 months, a 23-year-old named Michael Jackson. In June 2005, during one of these trips, the Sumners invited the couple to stay the night. They shared a meal. They talked. The Sumners, as they often did with people they trusted, spoke openly about their finances. The sale of the South Carolina property, the $99,000, the comfortable life they were settling into. On the morning of July 9th, 2005, Rhonda called her mother's number in Jacksonville, Florida. No answer. She called again and again. She told herself her mother was out. Maybe at an appointment. Maybe the phone was on the charger in the other room. She waited. She called the next morning. Still nothing. Nobody knew yet that Carol and Reggie Sumner had been missing for 2 days. Nobody knew that on the night of July 8th, while Rhonda was still assuming her mother was just slow to call back, something had already been done to the couple that could not be undone. On the morning of July 10th, Rhonda called the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. She told them she hadn't been able to reach her parents since Friday. She told them she called every day without fail. She told them something was wrong. Police were sent to check the house. What they found was a home that looked like the middle of a perfectly ordinary evening. The lights were on. Food was still sitting on the stove. A pot left mid-preparation, never finished. The couple's cell phone was on the counter. Their medications were still there, untouched. Reggie's walker was by the door. The Lincoln Town car was gone. But Mikey, the couple's small dog, was alone inside the house. And Carol Sumner did not leave Mikey alone. A BOLO was issued for the Lincoln Town car. The missing persons investigation was opened. Officers responded to the Sumners' house at 5310 Riverview Road in the St. Nicholas neighborhood. That same day, July 12th, an off-duty officer found the Sumners' Lincoln Town car abandoned in Sanderson, Florida. It was towed to an impound lot and examined. A fingerprint was recovered from the vehicle. That print was later matched to Michael Jackson. According to court records, Jackson assessed the Sumners with calculated attention. Carol weighed approximately 90 pounds. She was undergoing chemotherapy for liver cancer. Reggie could not move without assistance. They were newly arrived in Jacksonville, far from most of their family, with no close neighbors who would notice their comings and goings. After they left the Sumners' house, Jackson told Tiffany what he was thinking. He said the couple had money and were easy targets. He said he had a plan. Tiffany Cole did not walk away. Jackson brought in 2 others. Alan Wade was 18 years old, someone Jackson already knew. Wade brought in his best friend, Bruce Nixon, also 18. The 4 of them sat together and mapped out what they were going to do. Jackson led the planning. According to Nixon's later testimony, Jackson told the group he intended to kill the couple, not just rob them, to eliminate any witnesses. The group purchased disposable gloves, duct tape, plastic wrap, and a toy gun to use during the confrontation. Nixon stole several shovels from neighbors in his area. Tiffany rented a Mazda from a South Carolina agency, under her own name. In the days before July 8th, the group drove past the Sumners' house on multiple occasions. Tiffany called the couple on her cell phone, maintaining the appearance of a routine visit, while the others observed the house from outside. And 2 nights before they planned to act, the group drove north across the Florida state line into the remote woods of Charlton County, Georgia. Court records from Alan Wade's trial describe what happened that night. The 4 of them parked on the road and walked into the woods. Tiffany held a flashlight. Jackson, Wade, and Nixon dug a hole. When they were satisfied with the size and the location, they left the shovels. They walked back to the car. They drove back to Florida. After dark on July 8, 2005, the 4 arrived outside the Sumners' home. Jackson and Tiffany waited in the rented Mazda, parked down the street. They did not approach the house. The Sumners knew their faces. If Carol or Reggie saw them through the window, they might not open the door for strangers. Wade and Nixon walked up to the front door. Nixon knocked. Carol answered. Wade asked if they could use the telephone. Once inside, Wade ripped the telephone cord from the wall. Nixon produced the toy gun and held the couple at gunpoint. Both Sumners were bound with duct tape. Their eyes were covered. Their mouths were sealed. Wade used the Nextel two-way radio to signal Jackson. Jackson entered the house. He moved through the rooms, searching for bank cards, PIN numbers, financial documents. He collected Reggie's rare coin collection. He took jewelry. He gathered mail. He could not find the PIN numbers. He would deal with that later. The Sumners, still bound, still alive, were walked through the garage and placed into the trunk of their own Lincoln Town car. The trunk closed. Wade and Nixon got behind the wheel. Jackson and Tiffany followed in the Mazda. Their role, if a police vehicle got too close, was to accelerate and draw attention. A decoy. Nobody stopped them. Reggie and Carol Sumner were in the trunk for the entire drive. Bound, blindfolded. When the car stopped, the trunk was opened. Bruce Nixon later testified about what he saw. During the drive, both Carol and Reggie had worked their hands partially free from the duct tape. When the trunk was opened, they were found holding each other. Jackson crouched down with a yellow notepad. He told Carol and Reggie he needed their ATM PIN codes. They gave them. It made no difference. According to prosecutors, Jackson had decided from the beginning that the couple would not survive. They had seen faces. They could give descriptions. He had said as much to the group during the planning phase. The Sumners were placed into the pre-dug hole in the Georgia woods. According to court testimony from Nixon, Jackson and Wade remained at the grave while Nixon returned toward the road. The hole was filled in. The medical examiner, who later conducted the autopsies, determined the cause of death to be mechanical asphyxiation, obstruction of the airways by dirt. They were found when the grave was eventually opened, still free from their bindings, still together. The group drove back from Georgia into Florida. They abandoned the Lincoln Town car in Sanderson, Florida, a small community in Baker County, about 20 miles west of Jacksonville, and wiped it clean of fingerprints. They returned to Jacksonville. Using the PIN codes written on the yellow notepad, Jackson made a series of ATM withdrawals from the Sumners' accounts. He distributed the cash among the four of them. That night, the group checked into a motel. Later that evening, Wade and Tiffany went back to the Sumners' house and removed additional items that had been left behind, including a computer, which they later pawned for cash. In total, approximately $5,000 was withdrawn from the Sumners' accounts over the days that followed. On July 9th, one day after the abduction, Bruce Nixon separated from the group and returned to his home in Baker County. He attended a party there. According to court records, Nixon arrived intoxicated, carrying a plastic bag filled with multicolored prescription medications, the Sumners' medications, taken from the house. At the party, Nixon told at least one person that he had buried people alive and killed them. He did not name his accomplices. He pulled out his wallet. It contained approximately $200 in $20 bills. Photographs that would later be presented to two separate juries showed Tiffany Cole, Michael Jackson, and Alan Wade in a limousine. They were holding champagne. There was cash visible in their hands. They were smiling. On July 12th, a call came into the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. The man on the phone identified himself as James Sumner. He said that he and his wife had traveled to Delaware and were perfectly fine.
My name is Reggie Sumner. I'm out of town with my wife right now. Her sister passed away. A friend of ours that lives in the neighborhood called this morning and said that the garage is open and that the Lincoln was missing. We just moved actually to there not long ago from South Carolina.
He said he was trying to access his bank account and was having trouble. The detective on the call asked to speak to Mrs. Sumner. A woman's voice came on the line. The detective was not convinced. The voices didn't match what investigators had on file. Investigators pulled GPS records. The phone had been active in the vicinity of the Sumners' house on the night of July 8th. From that cell phone data, investigators identified a rental car, a silver Mazda, rented from a South Carolina agency. The rental agreement was in the name of Tiffany Cole. Investigators ran the name. They found the connection to the Sumners from their time in South Carolina. They traced her recent movements. Using the bank account activity and the GPS records from the rental car, they tracked 3 people to a motel in the Charleston, South Carolina area, a Best Western. The rooms were booked under Tiffany Cole's name. In the motel rooms, investigators found Carol and Reggie Sumner's identification documents, their credit cards, their checkbooks, their bank records, and personal documents belonging to the couple. Cole, Jackson, and Wade were taken into custody. All 3 denied involvement. Bruce Nixon's name came up through the investigation. He was located in Jacksonville and arrested separately. Unlike the others, Nixon did not deny what had happened. He told detectives he would show them where the Sumners were. On the morning of July 16, 2005, 8 days after Carol and Reggie Sumner were taken from their home, law enforcement arrived at a remote stretch of woodland just north of the Florida-Georgia border in Charlton County. Bruce Nixon had led them there. The shovels were still at the site, left by the group after the burial. Investigators began to excavate. The remains of Carol and Reggie Sumner were recovered from a hole 4 miles north of the Florida state line. They had been buried alive. The bindings on their wrists had been worked loose. Their bodies were found close together. While held in South Carolina awaiting extradition, Michael Jackson placed phone calls to his grandmother, Dimples Inabinat.
This mother showed them where the spot was at.
Yes, dear.
Bruce just killed us all.
Yes, dear.
Every inmate call from the facility began with an automated message advising both parties that the conversation was being recorded. At trial, a nearly 2-hour recording of Jackson's first interrogation was played in full. In it, Jackson denied direct involvement and placed blame on Wade and Nixon. He claimed he was present at the grave, but said he had gone back to the Mazda. He claimed the ATM card found in the interrogation room trash belonged to Wade's mother. He told the jury he had no idea the Sumners were in the trunk when the cars drove to Georgia. He told them that when the trunk was opened, he was shocked to find the couple inside. He told them he went back to the Mazda, while the others handled what happened next. When asked why he hadn't tried to stop them, Jackson told the jury, "I'm not trying to be the next victim. You don't look at 2 people that you're watching bury 2 people alive and do that. Next thing you know, I'm the next person in the hole." The jury deliberated for 3 hours. They returned a verdict of guilty on all 6 counts. 2 counts of first-degree murder, 2 counts of kidnapping, 2 counts of armed robbery. Jackson was sentenced to death. Tiffany Cole was tried in October 2007. The prosecution presented the limousine photographs, Cole, Jackson and Wade, champagne in hand, cash visible, smiling, taken while Carol and Reggie Sumner were in the ground. The jury deliberated for less than 90 minutes. They found Cole guilty on all counts. They voted 9-3 to recommend the death penalty. Alan Wade was tried separately, convicted on all counts, sentenced to death. Bruce Nixon, who had cooperated from the beginning and led police to the bodies, pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. He was sentenced to 45 years in prison. In 2016, the United States Supreme Court ruled in Hurst versus Florida that the state's death penalty sentencing process, which allowed judges to make the final determination rather than juries, violated the Sixth Amendment. More than 150 Florida death row inmates were entitled to new sentencing hearings. Cole, Jackson, and Wade were among them. Alan Wade's resentencing hearing took place in June 2022. During jury selection, Wade broke down in tears in front of the jury pool, prompting the judge to sever his case from Jackson's. At the hearing, Wade addressed the Sumner family directly. "I should have helped instead of hurt you," he said. His jury recommended life in prison. He was resentenced to life without the possibility of parole. Michael Jackson's resentencing took place in May 2023. His jury voted 8-4 to recommend death. He was resentenced to death. He remains on Florida's death row. Tiffany Cole's resentencing hearing was held in August 2023.
For justice, but rather mercy. The same mercy that God has continues to give me. I believe that there are many more people that I can reach out to with God's guidance and your mercy.
At the hearing, members of the Sumner family addressed Cole directly in open court. They offered her their forgiveness. Her jury voted 10-2 to spare her life.
How are you?
Do you call it death row?
No, we call it life row.
It's life row.
Life row? Why?
Because we're not dying, we're living.
Do you ever think I might be executed?
No, you can't have that mentality because that means you've accepted
You've already
this.
died. You've already died.
Yeah, you
You're
cannot
already
have
dead.
that mentality.
She was resentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Carol and Reggie Sumner's cremated ashes are kept in one urn, mixed together, sitting on a shelf in the home of Rhonda Alford. That was Rhonda's decision, to keep them that way, blended, inseparable, the way they had chosen to be. She talks about them the way you talk about people who are still, somehow, present. She says that sometimes, when the phone rings, she still half expects it to be her mother.